It's Computex 2025, and it's time to unveil the technology that's coming over the next year. Let's see what these companies have got cooking up.
The NVIDIA badge is a badge of honor. It's like, we work with NVIDIA, therefore we are a legit company. That is why everybody is very prominently displaying all of their, we work with NVIDIA badges. It doesn't matter if they make copper widgets or wires or power supplies or CDUs or anything. But also look at how upgraded the booths are. I mean, the booths, like, they spent a lot on the booths because they got a lot of money over the last couple of years because AI money printer go burr.
Travel expenses for Computex paid for by MSI. MSI has a new line of QB NUCs with enterprise and business class features and enterprise and business class warranties, designed for Windows 11 Pro, based around the Core Ultra 9 288V or the Core Ultra 7 285V. 48 TOPS, 32 gigabytes of LPDDR5, ARC graphics 140V. There's a lot to like about these mini PCs, especially the business class aspect. So be sure to check out my coverage of that. And now on with the rest of the video.
You can kind of tell the Gigabyte has benefited from NVIDIA's money printer significantly. The booth has had some upgrades, and the upgrades to the booth, vaguely reminiscent of a Starship, like just a little bit.
Autonomous sustainability and neural acceleration to explore the edge of knowledge and reality.
But here they're showing off all of their NVIDIA integration, the AI, toward the 1 megawatt per rack infrastructure, all of the NVIDIA infrastructure, high density liquid cooling, but also gaming peripherals, high-end graphics cards, motherboards, servers. You know, everybody still needs normal servers, not just the 22 kilowatt per server servers. 115 watts of cooling sidecar. This is the sidecar cooling, and from the back you can see it's just all radiator and compressor and designed for the connection. If you need in-row cooling, they also have a solution for that. We really are headed toward 600 kilowatts per rack. And this will pave the way for 600 kilowatts per rack. And that's a lot of cooling in a relatively standard rack configuration. This is the B683. This is 10 nodes in 6U. It's available in a dual socket configuration. You can run the 6980p with 12 memory channels, or if AMD EPYC is your preference, you can run AMD EPYC with this as well. This is available in either an AMD or an Intel configuration, but this is some seriously ridiculous density. Also, I want you to pay attention, the memory cooling. DDR5 uses a lot more power and generates a lot more heat than most people realize, so under full load, that could be a non-trivial concern, especially when we're talking about, oh, we're doing liquid cold plate directly to the CPU. Well, this solution covers the memory heat load in a nice, clean way. Gigabyte was showing off at their booth the thing that NVIDIA has been talking about since GTC. This is the Grace Blackwell desktop superchip chassis. This is the platform. This is what Jensen was talking about when he said you would need to run, you know, if you turn the microwave on in the kitchen, there's not going to be enough power to actually connect this thing. This board looks like it's engineered to deal with power budget constraints between the CPU side of things and the GPU side of things. So if your workload is more CPU bound, the CPU is going to get more power. But if the workload is more GPU bound, the GPU is going to get more power. But there's not, for the power delivery that's built here, I don't think you're going to be able to run both at full tilt without overloading a North American power breaker. This is what everybody's excited about. I mean, this is the Computex about NVIDIA. This is when you start to realize just how much of the gross domestic product of the entire planet is at the direction of a single individual that's piloting NVIDIA. And Gigabyte was showing off the really high-end solutions they were known for, now with new components, including the ConnectX 8. The ConnectX 8 NIC is technically a Gen 6, PCIe Gen 6 NIC, but it can only talk to certain other NVIDIA peripherals at Gen 6 for right now. Of course, Gigabyte was also showing off regular chassis, you know, that are based around Intel and AMD CPUs, high density, 2U 4-node, 2U 2-node, liquid cooled as well as air cooled. One of the important things about the R283 ZK0AAL1 is 2 DIMMs per channel in an interesting layout inside here, but also 500 watts per socket for the CPU TDP. So that's optimized for 9005. You're thinking like 9575F running at CTDP all the way to the top? This is probably the chassis to do it in. I looked for new Threadripper boards, but I saw a Threadripper chassis, a server style chassis. but more Threadripper boards. The Gigabyte AI Top is a truly innovative TRX50 platform. Well, WRX90, TRX50, well, there's a TRX50 that worked with WRX processors, which is really interesting and weird, but also awesome. So, yeah. And Gigabyte's Gigapod crams 1,000 GPUs in the footprint you see behind me. 1,000 GPUs is sort of what NVIDIA wants to deploy for, you know, the building block of their clusters. So there you go. Oh, look at that, a wild George appears.
Hello.
Have you ever seen 1,000 GPUs in as small of a footprint?
No, it's huge. Like it's huge in how small it is.
It's crazy. And it's also like megawatts.
Ooh, nice. Wait, megawatts in that? That's impressive.
Yeah, well, eventually that's all going to be like 600 kilowatts in one rack.
Ooh, that's spicy.
It's already over $1 million a rack. You know who else has benefited tremendously from the data center explosion? Schneider Electric. They make power strips. Okay, yeah, that's slightly reductive. Schneider Electric makes power strips and power distribution systems and large power systems and connectors and data center stuff, lots and lots of data center stuff, racks and everything else. And this is the nicest Schneider Electric booth I've ever seen. It's usually like one of the nondescript booths. It's just some white plastic panels and blue peel and stick lettering. This is much nicer. Good job, Schneider Electric. I'm here at ASRock and to take a look at all things ASRock and see what they're up to at this particular Computex 2025. ASRock has 5 new motherboards at Computex, and they're all AMD. Well, I think mostly AMD. The X870E Taichi OC Formula? Yeah, the X870E Taichi OC Formula. 2 DIMM slots, 10400 tested and qualified on the board. On an AMD processor, 10400, 10400. Also has 6 M.2 slots. I call out the X870 Nova Wi-Fi. This is not an E motherboard, but giving up E, giving up USB 4, you have 2 direct-to-CPU PCIe Gen 5 M.2, and your X16 slot still runs at Gen 5 X16. ASRock has created a more desirable X870 motherboard that is not in fact X870E for a lot of common use cases if you're willing to give up USB 4. Also notice lurking at the bottom here, it's an A620 ITX motherboard. A620 is an inexpensive chipset, but it has 2.5 gig and 1 gig, dual NICs at the rear. Are you thinking home server? I'm thinking home server, ALC 897, 789, you can get a cheap 8-core EPYC, as long as that works in the BIOS. And it's a pretty good board layout.
And what you can see, the VRM is pretty strong, so 170 watt CPU, no problem.
170 watt CPU, no problem, wow.
Yeah.
And 802.11 AXE, Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth, and some pretty decent USB connectivity as well. This is a new version of the Taichi in the Taichi family, the creator version of the Taichi. 5 gigabit and 10 gigabit LAN on board, and look at all that USB connectivity. ASRock also has a new X870 Live Mixer Wi-Fi. You've got 2 X4 slots, it's PCIe Gen 3x4 and PCIe 4.0x4, and then PCIe Gen 5x16. The thing that I always love to see on the Live Mixer, lots and lots and lots of USB connectivity. This is the 9070 XT Taichi white card. It's a concept card, but it's got a USB, it's got a LCD option on it. It's a white color scheme. So their idea is to put an LCD on this version of the card. This is new. It's a 9070 XT Challenger. More aggressive pricing. That is terrible.
We are annoyed about this. Always a long, very long speech and very loud.
So that's the 9060 XT Steel Legend in 8 and 16 gigabytes. And then the Challenger version in 8 and 16 gigabytes. But this is a true 2-slot card. There's some people that really want just a 2-slot card. So it's clocked a little slower, but very similar performance. Single slot. So this is designed for density and high airflow.
For those cases with a high airflow.
Okay. So ASRock has a demo here of YOLO V10 running on 2 Radeon GPUs, ROCm basically, and they're pre-trained on their booth staff. So as you walk by, YOLO V10's like, oh, object detection, and then it identifies them correctly. It's pretty awesome. So ROCm on GPUs, we're getting close. That was part of AMD's announcements, and it's basically there. ASRock is also launching one new QD OLED monitor, the PG032U FSA, 240 Hertz, 4K. It's got built-in Wi-Fi antennas on the side, a lot of new features because it's QD OLED. But yeah, QD OLED I think is the future of monitors because it's just like the rich, deep blacks and the color accuracy and the speed of the panel. There's a lot to love about OLED. There really is. ASRock's doing power supplies now, and we took a look at the Steel Legend 1000-watt power supply a little while ago, but they've upped it to 1200 watts, you know, dual 12V6 power connections, and a lot of really interesting things going on as far as the new power supply connectors. But there's something pretty innovative with the power supply setup here at ASRock, and I'm gonna have to show it to you for it to make sense. Are you ready for it? This is the most innovative power supply feature that we've seen in an age. ASRock power supplies, the Tai Chi and the Phantom Gaming have a special temperature sensor built into the NVIDIA style 12V2 power connector. Yeah. The 12V2 cable here has extra pins for temperature sensing at the GPU end. The power supply will turn off if the cable hits 95C, meaning that you're facing a melting situation because beyond 95C, the integrity is compromised. Now the green part of the connection here is so that you're not supposed to see the green. You shove that all the way in. You're not supposed, like the connector is not in all the way if you can see green. We covered that on the Steel Legend power supply, but the Steel Legend power supply that I have doesn't have the temperature sensor. They've added the temperature sensor to the 80 plus gold and 80 plus titanium, you know, Tai Chi and Phantom Gaming power supplies that they offer. And this is great. You know, if you're gonna run RTX 5090 or RTX 6000 Blackwell, or you're worried about those high current cards, the 600 watt cards, having a connector issue, get this, because the temperature sensor is built into the cable. How could that possibly go wrong? Wooting gets a mention in this video, not just because they make a damn fine keyboard or because their logo is a W, which is near and dear to my heart, but also because they spent some time, at least their customer service did, figuring out some problems with the KVM and why their keyboards didn't work in HID mode, even though they're fancy and programmable and do all kinds of stuff. The problem was there were too many HID endpoints for the controller and the KVM to work properly, but that has been fixed. They fixed it, and so thanks, that's amazing. But also, keyboards, check out the keyboards. Yeah, Wooting. Also stopped by Exceleram because they actually do burn-in testing for their RAM, which is interesting. And up to DDR5 8400? 8400. That's not CUDIM, that's just UDIM. But they qualify on Intel, and then they move it from an Intel platform to an AMD platform and do 2 more tests to verify that it's actually going to work correctly. So a lot of the time, you know, just the volume of manufacturing that happens, there's not always time to do actual like testing once it's fully assembled. The chips are tested individually, but after it's applied to the package and everything else, it's like that process usually doesn't go wrong, but sometimes it does. And so it's nice to see a memory company that actually does explicit burn-in testing, and it's also part of their marketing. There's a lot of loudness and flashing lights at the ASUS booth, so it's really not amazing in terms of like doing audio, but you know, they're showing off all kinds of blinking lights and gamer stuff, and it's like, hey, did you hear about the 5090 Astral that can run at like 1000 watts? And also the gamer peripherals and stuff that was at the press event. So there's a lot here in terms of custom cases and typical ASUS stuff, and some updated motherboards and pretty interesting stuff. ASUS has done a good job of documenting all that in their press releases and online stuff though, so you know, check that out if you're interested in gaming peripherals and that kind of thing. I didn't really see too much off the beaten path though. 5090 laptop GPU connected with USB 4 to the Flow Z13. Now this is the mobile version of the 5090, and you're still limited to 40 gigabit and blah blah blah, but you could add a 5090 mobile to the Flow. That's an option. It's like a docking station, but not. And with a 5090 mobile built in. And wired Ethernet, which is also going to run over USB. Now the cable is Thunderbolt 5. This device is Thunderbolt 5, but this is USB 4. So I'm completely unhinged. I'm here at ASUS, and the Flow Z13 was hooked up to the 5090, the mobile docking station with all the stuff. There was no driver. So I used my hotspot, and we installed the driver, and we installed CPU-Z. All right, so this is ROG Flow Z13. They let me download GPU-Z, and yeah, we've got the 8060S because this is the Flow 13. Oh, we don't have the drivers for the. I gotta get the drivers. Okay, hang on. All right, we're just gonna do the graphics driver. We don't need the NVIDIA experience. We're installing the drivers. I did my hotspot. We're getting the drivers for the 5090 so we can GPU-Z. This is madness. Oh my, device manager looks so much more healthy now. Yeah, it's finished. All right, let's go. And you can see this thing is still beastly even with the USB 4 connection on the Flow Z13. So if you want an external 5090 mobile docking station with Ethernet and USB and everything else, well, ASUS has that. And it'll work with any Thunderbolt 4 or 5 interface. I wish it had Oculink, but you know, I get why they wouldn't add that. That's like a weirdo, like this crazy person rando thing. But it is Thunderbolt 5, which is 80 gigabit both ways, so that is nice. 24 gigs of VRAM and an external dock just seems absurd though, but hey, it's working. This is the ProArt B-roll. This is their ProArt SSD built into the 5080. Now it appears that all 16 lanes are routed on the PCB. So if it was like an X8 plus X4, I wouldn't expect the last 4 lanes on the card connector to have been routed. But that does appear to be the case. The 5080 SSD edition is also the only 5080 in the market with a Type-C connection. So you get dual DisplayPort, Type-C, and HDMI for the I/O. So if you're running VR or certain types of content creation, having the USB-C port is handy, and this is the 5080 that has that. So the situation with the 5080 and the M.2 is that the card will run the 5080 portion of the card with 8 PCIe Gen 5 lanes, and then 4 of the PCIe Gen 5 lanes are used for the M.2. That leaves 4 unused PCIe lanes, but a lot of motherboards, certain ASUS motherboards, will route those lanes to an M.2 on board. So you still have the capability to use all 16 Gen 5 lanes to the CPU, depending on the motherboard, with 2 M.2, but it's just that one of those will be carried by your GPU.
Now, I've got a lot more to cover at Computex. Be sure to check out our other videos. Thanks for watching.